My mom signed up for a low-cost tour during the summer break. Halfway there, the tour guide wanted to sell a kidney. To save my brother, my mom pushed me out. My daughter's a college student. She's healthy and has smooth skin. She'll fetch a good price. I was filled with resentment in my past life. I opened my eyes again back at the moment my mom was signing up for that tour. I raised my hand and said, "I'll stay behind to help pay off my brother's debt by working. I won't go on the tour." This time they finally got to enjoy their kidney selling tour. Suddenly, a sharp ringing startled me awake. I touched my chest, finding it intact. My mom was already on the phone, putting it on speaker. "Is that Tom, the guide from Red Sun Tours? I haven't filled out the form yet. Shouldn't we discuss it more?" The voice on the other end excitedly pressed, "Ms. White, if you don't decide soon, I'll have to give your spot to someone else. Everyone's eager for this deal. What's there to hesitate about?" My mom nodded in agreement. "You're right. I'll fill it out now, just wait a sec." Right then I realized I'd been reborn to the day my mom decided to sign up for that tour. In my past life, she went for that $40 border tour, claiming it was government subsidized as a giveback to the people. I had seen such scams online and warned her it was a trap. But she posted a video online, accusing me of being ungrateful and blocking her from enjoying life. Even my brother hit me, saying I was just jealous of him going abroad at such a young age. I finally gave in. Unbeknownst to me, right past the border, the guide turned into a thug. My parents protected my brother, kicking me out. My mom pleaded, "Take my daughter's kidney. She's a healthy college student. Spare my son." My dad also kowtowed, "Please, she's got smooth skin, worth more whether you sell or keep it." I looked at them heartbroken, asking why they treated me this way. The answer was brutal. "You've been eating the white family's food all these years. Why can't you die for your brother now?" I was dragged out by thugs, tortured for 3 days and nights, as they stayed by my brother's side, not shedding a single tear. Remembering this, I clenched my palm until it bled. This time they will pay. After hanging up the phone, my mom pulled out the forms, turning excitedly to my dad and brother. "This tour is a steal at $40 per person. A 4-day trip to Country M. It's a treat for our family to relax." I almost laughed coldly. Relax? More like letting your kidneys get some air. My mom looked at me hesitant. "It's just $40 each, why not let Lucy go too?" Quickly refused. "Nah, let it be. Save that money for my brother's pocket money." I expected my brother to be overjoyed, but instead he angrily kicked over a trash can. "You have to go. Who's gonna feed and dress me if you don't?" I rolled my eyes unfazed. My parents were desperate for a son and only had me. It took them 5 years to have this chubby thing. Ever since he was born, they ordered me to take care of their precious son. I tried to protest, but then they cut off my schooling funds, telling me to find a husband who would pay a high bride price so they could use the money for my brother's marriage. After that, I had no choice but to obey. Once I went to college, I thought I'd finally escape my parasite parents and useless brother. But blood ties, like a virus, are impossible to eradicate. After my brother's outburst, my dad quickly backed him. "Your brother's right. If you don't go, who will take care of him?" My mom clapped her hands in anger. "Do you expect us old folks to care for you? I'm the one who raised an ungrateful daughter." I rolled my eyes and quickly changed my tone. "Fine, I'll go. He's our white family's only heir. I can't ignore that." I looked at my chicken leg devouring brother on the sofa and smiled. "Guess we'll start with you this time, dear brother." My brother Oscar loved showing off. The moment our trip was confirmed, he posted on social media, "The world is dazzling. Without skills, don't flaunt." A Gen Z kid living the quality life with pics of his recently acquired passport and him, in shades and skin-tight jeans, leaning against someone's Porsche hood. I couldn't help but laugh. Most comments were from his groupies, as he hardly had any followers. This wouldn't do. I spent money online to hire a bunch of fake fans to hype his post. Overnight, Oscar became a hotshot rich kid online. His post was flooded with comments from profiles with cute girl avatars. "Wow, you're so handsome and rich, living the high life already. We're stuck at home this summer. And you're traveling abroad? Your family must be loaded." Oscar drooled with delight as he stared at his phone. "That's right, this is nothing to me." He was right, the whole thing cost just $40. Oscar got entirely lost in the dreamy web I spun, glued to his phone with glee. I smirked, quite pleased with myself. In the next moment, I sent a private message to the leader of the internet trolls. The fish are about to bite. Time to reel them in. There's not much time left before the trip, and the whole family is busy packing. Suddenly, someone started banging loudly on the front door. My mom, annoyed, went to open it. Bang, 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 you think your family's dead or something, knocking like that? Before she could even finish, a few intimidating men barged in. Where's Oscar? Bring him out now. My dad hurried out of the bedroom hearing this. What are you doing here? You better be careful, or I'll sue you for trespassing. The leader wasn't intimidated by my dad's threats and straight up slapped him across the face. Still wanna sue? My dad was stunned, glaring angrily, wanting to fight back. You got the guts to do it again. Before he could finish, the leader slapped him again, making him spin around. My mom rushed over, crying and shielding my dad. Please, let's talk this through, don't hit him. The leader flexed his floral tattooed arm. All right, I'll ask again. Still wanna sue? My dad, trembling, shook his head. No suing, then get Oscar out here already. I glanced at my brother's room. He had obviously seen everything and was hiding by the bed, pretending to be invisible. I gave the leader a look, and soon enough Oscar was dragged out like a chick. As soon as he hit the ground, he started begging. Please, sir, I swear I can pay back the money, just give me more time. My parents looked at Oscar confused. Money? What money? Terrified, he stuttered out the whole story. I knew all about it, even better than Oscar. A while back, I had the trolls switch tactics from praising to questioning en masse. Comments like, the way you dress doesn't scream rich, are you faking it? And your phone doesn't seem that pricey either. Oscar was stressed, frequently asking our parents and me for money. But with the trip looming, my parents were saving up to shop abroad, brushing him off with just a couple hundred. I outright denied him too, crying and pretending I needed living expenses. The more he ignored the online questioning, the faster the trolls dismantled his facade, bombarding his page. He couldn't take it anymore and resorted to getting an online loan one night while I watched. He spent all that money on unnecessary luxury items. After hearing the whole story, my dad was ready to smack him, but my mom pulled Oscar into her arms. He's still a kid. He just wanted to look good. What's so wrong with that? Only after several promises and signing an installment plan did the men leave. Once they were gone, I stepped up right away. Mom, Dad, I won't go on this trip. I'll stay and work to pay off the debt. My selfless act made my parents beam with joy. They were worried about the trip, and I was the scapegoat who came through. My mom immediately phoned Red Sun Tours Tom to cancel my spot. The three of them returned to happily chatting about what sights to see overseas. They didn't know that what awaited them was sheer darkness. On the day of departure, I lagged a little while getting Oscar's suitcase. My mom slapped my back for being slow. Can't even carry a thing properly, what good are you? Normally I talk back, but I didn't feel angry at all. I watched with a smile as they got into their cab, waving them off. After all, I'd never see them again. Oscar's social media didn't rest during the trip. He was live updating the trip. Our private guide is ready. About to enjoy an amazing foreign trip. Stay tuned. After that, there was nothing. People commented like, hasn't it been long enough? You should have updated even if you went to Antarctica. I chuckled. Kidney's probably gone by now, how would he update? Neighbors asked where my family was since no one was home. With a sigh of reluctance, I answered, they went abroad for a vacation. Why didn't you go, dear? Prepping my face, I squeezed out some tears. Oh, you wouldn't know, my useless brother owed money. The debt collectors kept coming, forcing me to stay and work to pay it off. The neighbor hitting the ground with a cane in frustration. How could they be so biased? Before long, neighbors gathered around and my sob story began. I work 4 jobs. I can't eat or rest while they're forgetting me overseas. I got sympathy from the neighbors, with some promising to speak up for me when they returned. By now, everyone focused on my miserable circumstances, forgetting to wonder why there wasn't any news from my family. My smile was harder to restrain than a loaded AK. But later that night, I got a call from a foreign number. Hesitant, I answered. Immediately, I heard panicked cries. Daughter, help us. My mom's plea was cut off. Then a gruff voice continued. Your parents and brother are with me. They said you're rich. I sighed. Do you really believe that? The kidnapper was stunned, then said, don't try anything funny. I'm offering you a chance now, just pay up. What's the price? I asked. $1 million per head, no negotiations. Pay and they go free. I laughed and suggested, why not just finish them off? You'd sell their parts for profit, avoiding this hassle and saving your phone bill. Right after I finished talking, I could hear my parents and my brother cussing me out over the phone. You little ungrateful brat. We've spent so much raising you. Even if you had to sell yourself, you better scrape together enough money to get us out. My brother chimed in with more insults. Yeah, you filthy thing, how dare you treat us like this? I'll beat you to death when I get back. Even the kidnapper seemed stunned by their bizarre reactions, going silent for a moment. After a bit, the kidnapper spoke up again, sounding fed up. I'm not joking, we really mean business here. I just laughed harder. Then why haven't you done anything? What's the matter, is your knife rusty? Or are you just too weak? After hanging up that day, I didn't give a second thought to it. I never planned on them making it back alive. But then a package arrived, disrupting my peace. As soon as I opened it, a foul stench hit me. It was a severed finger. I was shocked when I saw the gold ring on the finger. No one knew the story behind that ring better than I did. My mom had originally taken my summer job earnings to buy it for herself. She even got my brother the latest sneakers, but I got nothing. Just then, a new text notification flashed on my phone. See that package? That's your punishment for hanging up. You better cough up the $3 million, or next time it won't just be a finger. I smirked, thinking it was more like a reward than a punishment. However, the finger was a huge problem. Tossing it could get me into trouble. After pondering for a bit, I took it straight to the police station. I told the officers how my family insisted on joining cheap group tours. When it came to the kidnapping, I pinched my thigh to force a few tears, pleading, please, you have to save my parents and brother. They're asking me for money, but my brother is in so much debt. We have nothing. Seeing them suffer like this is breaking my heart. Drama is something I'm good at, genetics, I guess. Just like how my parents used to brag that they were never biased against daughters. The officer, seeing how upset I was, assured me they'd look into it immediately and told me to inform them if the kidnappers made contact again. I nodded obediently. The police acted quickly, visiting our neighborhood soon after. Watching through the curtains, I saw the neighbors animatedly talking about my tragic situation, nodding to myself in satisfaction. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with another message from the kidnappers, pushing me to send the money. They warned that if I didn't, next time they'd send an ear. I rolled my eyes and texted back, why not just torture them to death? Takes longer, hurts more, and might shake me up more. The next morning, a knock on my door woke me. I was surprised to see my aunt. Growing up, she always doted on Oscar, calling him her precious nephew. She's the one who pushed my parents to believe girls were worthless and they needed a baby boy. She must have heard about her dear nephew's kidnapping. I hadn't even said anything when she smiled and said, Lucy, no one wants to see such things happen. With you at home alone, I'm sure you're worried sick. So I came to check on you. I smirked and sighed, thinking she never visits without a reason. Aunt, you understand my feelings too well. I'm at my wit's end here, about to lose it. Her smile widened further. Oh, I actually have a suggestion for you. She pulled me to the sofa, chatting like we were suddenly best friends. It almost made me want to gag. I think since all they want is money, once you pay up, they'll let them go. I sighed, I get that, but do you know how much Oscar owes? We're broke. Shocked, she asked, when did he rack up debt? With a shrug, I replied, just before the trip. Otherwise, I would have gone with them. I stayed back to work off Oscar's debts. I sweetly looked at her, so, could you lend me some money? She scooted away from me, saying, Lucy, my hands are quite tied right now. Before I could speak, she continued, you understand, Oscar is the only male in the family, sometimes you just have to make sacrifices. Rolling my eyes, I gave her a sarcastic smile. What exactly do you mean, Aunt? She shifted in her seat. Well, maybe you could negotiate with the kidnappers? Offer to become a hostage so they'd release your family. Of course, we'd rescue you right after they're freed. I chuckled at her audacity. Knowing the kidnappers leaving the same location or not having backup plans is a fairy tale. She was clearly willing to trade my life for theirs. Maintaining a calm face, I asked, well, if it's such a good idea, why don't you go in my place? She jumped to her feet, pointing a finger at me. I am your elder. How dare you suggest I go and die? I flexed my wrists, stood up, and smacked her across the face. She didn't even have time to react. I sneered, so you do know it's a death trap? I thought you were dumb. I can teach you how to speak properly if you've forgotten. Stunned, she was about to retaliate, but I rushed to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. Touch me, and neither of us leaves here alive. Try me if you dare. Looking terrified, she screamed, Lucy, you're insane. One last chance, are you doing this or not? I lunged forward with the knife. For my aunt screamed and rushed out of the house. It really seems like the crazies enjoy the world first. You just can't reason with people acting like animals. I was about to put down the kitchen knife when I heard my aunt's voice from downstairs. Everyone come see. My niece refuses to help her own parents and younger brother. Today, I want all the neighbors to see what this girl Lucy is really like. Alright, if that's how she wants to play it. Knowing how good the local gossip group is, I'm honestly looking forward to it. Playing the victim? Now that's my area of expertise. Aunt underestimated how far I'd go when it mattered most. Before the crowd could gather, I was already rushing downstairs. She barely got a word out when I confronted her. My aunt looked at me nervously, seeing I was unarmed, cleared her throat, and was about to start yelling. But I slapped her before she could. Last time was the left cheek, this time right. Her expression froze in shock. You little brat, how dare you hit me? Just then I noticed the neighbors approaching. I quickly sat down on the ground, yelling loudly, Oh no, Auntie, I'm sorry. Please don't hit me. I really know I was wrong. My slap left her fuming, her eyes glaring red with rage. Now you realize you're wrong? Too late. I'll teach you a lesson. She lifted her hand, but before it could land, a bystander pushed her off balance. I've seen plenty of bullies like you in my day, picking on young girls. As long as I'm here, I'll see justice done. Is there no humanity left in you? Treating this child poorly just like your brother? I spit on the likes of you. The crowd murmured, pointing fingers at my aunt. She retorted, You all don't know anything, mind your own business. This girl is ungrateful, leaving her parents and brother to die. It's scandalous. Acting scared, I turned to one of the women nearby. Ma'am, my aunt came in hitting me, saying it's my fault my parents and brother are in trouble because of this trip. She said I should trade my life for theirs. I refused and she started hitting me. I'm so scared. The woman, upon hearing this, turned her words against my aunt. Do you have any decency? Enjoy the good times without your daughter, but now that there's trouble, you remember her? And you dare to hit her too? Where's the justice in that? Overwhelmed by the accusations, my aunt fled, leaving one last threat behind. Lucy, just you wait, you'll regret this. I shrugged it off and was about to head home when one woman patted me on the back. Girl, your aunt looks a bit familiar, like a tour group guide. After thinking it over, she recalled, saying it looked like someone from a really cheap tour group. She had thought about joining, but her son stopped her, leading to a long argument. I blurted out, Red Sun Tours. She eagerly nodded, yes, that's the one. She even video called me to explain the form. I knew I'd seen her before. Realizing this, a chill ran down my spine. Could it be that my entire family was conned into joining the tour group thanks to my aunt's plotting? But why would she target her favorite nephew? Picking up some dinner on my way home, the thought lingered uneasily. Inside, I noticed some rough fingerprints on the electronic lock. I figured it was my panicked aunt brushing it by accident and thought nothing more. After dinner, I lay in bed but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That was until hands from under the bed clutched my wrists, proving it wasn't in my mind. Crawling out was a tall figure, a middle-aged man in his 40s. He smirked, pinning my arms. Girl, I've been at this long enough, finally found someone with some looks. I struggled fruitlessly as my consciousness began drifting and my limbs felt like dead weight. As his face drew nearer, dread took hold. But then his phone rang. Annoyed, he picked up, and I could faintly hear a woman's voice from the other end. After hanging up, he cursed but backed off me. If it weren't for your sister Lisa wanting you delivered safely, today would be your unlucky day. My Aunt Lisa. I barely had a chance to speak before a blow struck the back of my neck, throwing me into darkness. When I awoke, I was in a dim, cramped room, stained with old blood. I knew then my aunt had sold me out. The rusty door creaked open as a guy with old-school tattoos stepped in. Not quite keeping up with the times here. Well, finally reunited. Must be heartwarming, he taunted, shoving in 3 figures. As they came into focus, it was my parents and brother. Recognizing me, my mom lunged in anger, tearing at my hair. You ungrateful wretch. Just had to end up here with you, you heartless thing. I grabbed her wrist, shoving her off effortlessly. Meanwhile, Oscar stood frozen near the captors, visibly wetting himself. My dad, ever the pragmatist, crawled across the floor to their feet. Boss, look, here's my daughter. With her beauty and fair skin, she'll fetch a great price whether you sell her or whatever. My mom, having been knocked down, quickly chimed in, yes, just spare our son. The girl doesn't matter. Watching with a cold eye, I couldn't believe, even with a second chance at life, I couldn't escape this nightmare. 5 After hearing what they said, the robber started laughing like crazy. You guys are really something, aren't you? I love a good family feud. Then with a sly look in his eyes he said, see that red-hot iron over there? If you burn her yourself, I'll let your son go. How about it? Doesn't seem like a bad deal, right? My dad quickly nodded, not a bad deal at all. He was about to grab the searing iron, but my mom noticed me trying to step back and immediately ran over to grab me tightly. Oscar, on the other hand, eagerly volunteered to record the whole thing, even suggesting I get burned without my clothes so it would be clearer. He seemed to have forgotten his earlier fear, replaced with some twisted excitement. Meanwhile, my parents were both furious and seemed ready to finish me off. In my past life, I was abandoned by family, feeling despair and loss. But in this life, all I felt was anger and defiance. The desire for revenge burned within me. I quietly chanted to myself, grant me your power. I will sign the contract. A mystical voice echoed in my ear. Are you sure? You've been reborn, don't you want to enjoy life here? I shook my head with a wry smile. This life is for revenge. If my revenge is fulfilled, there's nothing I'll miss. He sighed beside me, as long as you're sure. In a lucid dream, a man in colorful armor appeared, leisurely waving a fan. Seeing my sorry state, he chuckled. So, do you regret coming to this world? He asked. I looked at him confused. Why would I? Life is full of flavors. He nodded affirmingly. That's just like you. He seemed oddly familiar, and I asked who he was, but he dodged the question. You'll find out eventually. Do you need my help now? I rolled my eyes. You talk like you're that powerful. His laughter grew. I have some power, yes. I can give you immense strength for a short time, but you need to sign a contract with me. I asked about the price, wary of it being too good to be true. He gazed into my eyes and replied, the cost is leaving this world with me, to where you're meant to go. When I woke up, I thought it was all just in my head. But in my moment of despair, he appeared real as ever. Without hesitation, I bit my finger until blood flowed. His ethereal voice spoke again. From now on, my power is yours to command. The pain in my body faded away, like I had found a health potion in a video game. When the iron was about to touch me, I broke free from my mom's grasp with a loud yell. The iron landed squarely on her chest. She screamed, frantically running around, and the robber laughed hysterically. I turned to him. Hey, I see you're enjoying this, little buddy, but guess what? You're next. He looked up at me. Are you nuts, girl? No one talks to me like that around here. Believe me, I'll kill you right now. Oscar chimed in. Yeah, finish her off, man. How dare she disobey? I tilted my head. Oops, almost forgot about a guy like you. I snapped my fingers, locking eyes with the robber. Suddenly, he picked up a whip and headed towards Oscar, ignoring his begs for mercy, whipping him mechanically over and over again. My parents pleaded, don't hurt our son, he's the one who deserves it. I sighed, turning to the robber. A single whip seems too boring. How about switching it up with the iron? The robber obediently picked up the red-hot iron, plunging it into Oscar's stomach with a sizzle. Oscar kept cursing me out, so I feigned sticking my fingers in my ears. I don't want to hear him anymore. The next moment, the iron was shoved into Oscar's mouth. I wanted to continue, but Oscar, accustomed to an easy life, couldn't handle it and ended up dying from the pain. Witnessing this, my mom fainted in shock, and my dad lunged at the robber in a fit of rage. Of course, his son was his pride and joy. It was only natural. I restored the robber's sanity, and seeing my dad's fury, the robber developed a murderous intent, and soon both lay lifeless on the ground. When people outside heard the commotion, they rushed in. I pretended to be helpless, trembling in a corner. But when their leader approached, I kicked him against the wall without hesitation. The newfound power was truly impressive. The thug was dumbfounded, and after regaining his senses yelled, "You're begging for death, girl. Boys, drag her out and finish her." I smiled. "How about you kneel?" The others were about to grab me, but stopped dead in their tracks when, to their disbelief, the leader dropped to his knees, bowing to me until he bled, then fell silent. Seeing this, the gang panicked and tried to escape, hurling curses at me in the process. But they didn't get far. I stopped them in their tracks with a thought. A moment later I issued a command, "Go turn yourselves in." They all walked to the police station, fulfilling my order before regaining their self-control. They were left bewildered and caught, unable to flee. When the cops arrived, I feigned tearfully, "You're finally here, please save my mom." Once rescued, we were sent back home. During interrogation, the gang spilled everything. They had been luring people with cheap tour packages, tricking simple-minded folks like my mom. Those duped usually came with family. Young ones were sold or killed, while old folks were disposed of on the spot. The situation was incredibly nasty. The police managed to rescue a bunch of hostages from the compound, and even uncovered an internal list of theirs in the office. One of their outside contacts on that list was named Lisa. I already knew my Aunt Lisa was with them, so right after I got back home, I went straight to her house. She looked shocked to see me, her finger trembling as she pointed at me. You were supposed to be, I thought you were still in there." Lisa collapsed to the ground and then started shouting as if she lost it. "How did you get back? How is it possible?" I stood over her and said, "You had it all figured out, didn't you? You planned to trick our family into going there, so our house and inheritance would all become yours. You didn't expect me to stick around, huh? So you used every trick in the book to lure me in too." Then I squatted down to look her in the eye. "What I don't get is, was your fondness for Oscar fake? And my dad, he's your brother." Hearing that, Lisa's eyes turned red as she laughed like crazy. "Ha ha, do you know you had another aunt? Because of your dad, she never got to live. The family favored boys over girls, and whenever I stood up to your dad, I'd get beaten. So I loathed him. I wanted to make your family chaotic, and have his daughter taste how it feels to be abandoned by family. I'll make you all pay. Everything you have should have been mine." My hand reached for her throat, but I let out a laugh and let go. "You should have stood up for other girls affected by their family backgrounds like you were, but you chose to bully the weak. A pathetic person like you isn't even worth it." I walked out the door. A bunch of undercover cops had been waiting outside for a while. As they took Lisa away, she kept screaming curses. Some people really aren't worth pitying, spending their whole lives without even knowing who they should truly blame. The evidence against Lisa was airtight, witnesses and all. She had committed more than just this crime. She got the death penalty. My mom's mental state was severely impacted from being in that little dark room, leaving her quite unstable after returning home. She ended up being committed to a psychiatric hospital. Yet, I still took care of her, visiting whenever I had the time. I'd tell her stories about Oscar, painting vivid pictures of Oscar's plight. Each time she heard them, she'd lose it and become hysterical, until she ended up permanently bound to that tiny bed, undergoing treatments with needles and electric shocks. I sold off the family property and everything we had. With the money, I set up a foundation to help oppressed women. I even volunteered to spread awareness about scams, regularly taking to the streets to talk to older folks. As time went by, I almost thought that the man cloaked in vibrant armor had forgotten our pact. But one night, his voice echoed in my ear right on time. "Little fairy, it's time to go." Hearing his call, memories surged back into my mind like a wave. His name was Leo, a divine beast guarding the Jade Lake, where a magical lotus grew. This lotus had the power to grant wishes. People flocked there with their desires. But there was one little fairy who came without any wish, only circling around Leo. He asked her why. She just smiled and said, "I see you here day after day, it must be tough. How about I wish for your happiness?" His days began to brighten. Until one day, the fairy told him she was bored with the heavens and wanted to experience the human world's ups and downs. As I recalled everything, he whispered softly in my ear, "Now I want to make a wish, that when you return, you forget everything and always stay happy." I looked up at him. "Thank you." The end.